Welcome to the University of California, San Francisco Sports Medicine Podcast featuring Dr. Nirav Pandya, Dr. Brian Feeley, and Dr. Drew Lansdowne discussing hot topics in sports medicine and society. We hope you enjoy our podcast and look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome, everyone, to our UCSF Sports Medicine Podcast, 6 to 8 weeks with myself, Dr. Nirav Pandya, and Dr. Brian Feeley. Today, we have the pleasure of having Buzz Sorensen on, who is a softball coach in the area and very dear to Dr. Feeley, who has had Buzz coach both of his daughters, currently coaching one of them. So thank you for joining our podcast today, Buzz. And maybe the first question I want to ask you is, how long have you been coaching softball and how did you get into it?
So I've been coaching a formal level of softball for about 20 years. Before that, it was pretty hard to coach and hold down a full-time job. How I got into it was I actually, like a lot of people, played baseball, and not at a particularly high level. I played in high school, but I guess I was an okay ball player. And then in my mid-20s, I discovered men's fast-pitch softball. And it was an eye-opener. It was sort of like baseball, but not. It was much faster game. And if you can imagine men playing on the size of a field that little leaguers play on, it's got to be fast. It's just an amazingly technical game. You got to be perfect. And so I got into it. I played for about 13 years. I was a third baseman, and I had been a middle infielder in baseball, but I transitioned to third base, which is a real specialty position in softball. When I was done, I just, you sort of go into a little bit of depression in a way. It's you have lost something that's been such a big part of your life. We would play 100 games a year. And it's a lot. It was a big commitment and so much fun. And so when I got the opportunity to coach my daughter, when she got of an age to play, it was fun. She and I just go play catch and try to teach her, kind of the proper way how to catch and throw. And that led into then some more formal coaching.
Most people know that there are some differences between baseball and softball, the main one being the windmill pitch. But you mentioned some of the technical differences. And since you forced Sonali to play third base much against her will, what do you think, other than the pitching, what are the main differences between baseball and softball that the average consumer of baseball wouldn't be aware of?
Well, like I said, it's very fast. And so, and the way the game is coached and played has changed a bit since I was playing. I'm not quite sure why. Back when I was playing, we were playing for a run. The pitching was so good. We were trying to get somebody, if you got somebody on base, you'd move them up a base. And so, Brian, that I'm an advocate of bunting and moving a player up a base into scoring position. And so technically, you have to be good at that. You can't. I see in baseball, some of these kids don't know how to bunt, and even the girls coming up, because of the way softball is taught right now, they don't know how to bunt and play the small game. It's a game in softball that I play a lot. So you have to be technically good at bunting. And then on the other end, you have to be able to play in close on the corners and be able to make quick plays. These girls get down the line so fast that you've got to know how to make those plays. And whereas in baseball, they don't bunt as much, I don't think, and the corners don't field as many bunts as in softball.
And what do you feel about some of the rule changes in baseball and how it's changed? I know obviously you're talking about softball, but how do you feel about some of those overall changes in baseball and some of the rules?
Well, I'm not so up on them. This bigger base thing is kind of interesting. I don't know what to make of it, really. I guess some guys are going to try to steal more, and it'll liven up the game. Speeding up the game part of it has been in softball for quite a while. And when I used to go to a baseball game, or when I go to a baseball game, I never really were. I was there, for the whole length of time. Never really bothered me that it took a while. You're there to enjoy the whole environment. I don't know that it's going to change things all that much. Softball has been a speed game for quite a while. I mean, the pitchers get only so many pitches between innings, and batters can't even leave the batter's box between pitches. It's kind of been there for quite a while.
Yeah, you brought up pitchers, and I totally agree. I feel like when you go to a baseball game, especially in the college or majors, there really is this like progression to, well, we've got a left-handed batter coming in who uses their right eye in a squinty fashion, therefore we need to change pitchers. And softball's kind of the exact opposite. You carry 2, maybe 3 pitchers on your roster. Do you think that's because that's how many pitchers are out there and they're kind of evenly distributed? Or do you think there's something about softball that means you don't need as many pitchers on your overall roster?
Well, I think it's a little of both, to be honest. I mean, look, we would take as many pitchers as we could, and so long as they could also play other positions. And many pitchers are really good ball players doing other things too. We've also had, at least at the high school level, we've had just like one pitcher or
zero.
Or zero, and that's really tough. And I don't think that has anything to do with a dearth of pitchers. It's just sort of bad luck that that group didn't come to your school at that time. A lot of girls start out at the lower levels seeing pitching and thinking, oh, I want to do that, and then and they do it for a while, but the real quote unquote pitchers really have to devote a lot of time to the art. It's not just learning your footwork and coming up and doing a little crow hop to first and learning, what your arm angle is to throw the ball. I mean, there are technicalities that I don't even know. To throw all of the pitches that they want to throw it takes a real commitment of time, and it kind of separates the ones who really want it from the ones who, oh, that seemed like a cool thing to do. Right now, our team has 2 pitchers. Well, your daughter actually pitched. She pitched. I know she doesn't want to pitch, but she pitched batting practice the other day, bunting practice, and it was a big help, I tell you. So it's always good to have as many people who can throw as possible. So.
I know one of the things we see a lot when you talk about pitchers in baseball is everyone talks about injury risk and arms and Tommy Johns. Do you see differences in terms of pitchers getting injured in your experience coaching softball? Do you see as many females getting injured? And if you see the differences, why do you think they're there?
Well, it's clear to me that fast pitch pitchers have a much lower injury rate than other pitchers. And I don't know the mechanics of it all, what's going on with the shoulder and the arm and all, but it's pretty clear that it's an easier motion. The windmill or the underhand is an easier motion on the shoulder. And I mean, to the extent that these girls, and some of these girls pitch 3 games in a day and then come back the next day. So now we don't do that in high school, but just because of the nature of our schedule. But I try to schedule games every other day. Really try not to have back-to-back games, but so they have plenty of time to recover, and they don't seem to be affected at all. The biggest injuries they get are a line drive off of a wrist or an ankle. I don't know what it is. I mean, maybe you know what the reason is that the shoulder and the arm is better with an underhand throw than an overhand. But yeah.
Well, it is interesting. I think some of it is probably differences in pitching motion, and the windmill pitch was described as a natural motion, but I don't think throwing something as hard as you possibly can and then trying to put spin on it is ever considered all that natural. But I do think there's something about some of the intensity of which the boys, especially as they go through 12, 13, 14, really start ramping up their pitching and their practicing and going to showcases. And that overall load, especially on the elbow, really starts wearing them out at a young age when they show promise. So, for our listeners and viewers that don't really know, you're kind of a legend in the field. You've been doing this for 20 plus years. What do you think is the biggest challenge that you've had that's changed over the last 20 years? Is it different types of parents? Is it the weather in Pacifica when you're coaching and you can't see the outfield through the fog? Are kids' expectations different?
One of the biggest things is just me controlling my own expectations as I go out to coach. And I think that might have changed over time. It's sort of a kind of a bell curve kind of thing. I started with low expectations with younger players, the 8U and 10U and 12U. When they got to 14U, they're kind of ball players. I mean, they're ready to go into high school, and you should know some things. And so my expectations were higher. And then as I've coached at high school, I was kind of surprised at how I don't know, the nature of the ball players who come out. We get travel ball players who are playing a lot of ball, who are definitely thinking of playing ball in college. And then we get players who played some rec ball and thought, hey, I heard softball's fun, and so, or some girls who've never played before. And I can't even imagine that when I was in high school that a beginner would come out for a high school baseball team anyway. And so that's kind of changed, and my expectations have had to change over time. Now my expectations are a little lower again. They'd gotten high and now they're a little lower on the players. I love them. Don't get me wrong. They are wonderful people. And it's just that I have to manage what I expect them to be able to do. They're all on a journey in softball. And the journey, and some are way far more advanced than others, and we have to coach both.
Our final question for you, Buzz, just a fun one. What's your favorite baseball movie of all time?
Oh wow! Well, the one that just popped into my head was The Natural. I just always liked that. This character who was flawed, but had, maybe it wasn't even totally his fault, but he also had this incredible ability that was way above and beyond what anybody could expect from a guy, from him. But if you're asking me about sport movies in general, I think Miracle is just a phenomenal movie. That's so motivating and inspirational. And,
yeah, that's great. No, I agree. Miracle is definitely a top one on my list as well too. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, you're a legend out here in the Bay Area, have probably impacted the lives of so many young athletes. So thank you for taking the time to join with us and share your experience and knowledge about softball. Really appreciate it.
All right. You bet. Thanks.